She sent the text to the wrong number. A Korean Mafia boss replied, "Don't move, I'm coming." Maya Wilson's fingers trembled over the cracked screen. Her right arm cradled against her ribs like something already dead. The bathroom tiles pressed ice into her spine, but she barely felt it. All she felt was the wrongness, the unnatural angle of her wrist, the wet heat of blood seeping through her cardigan sleeve where the glass had torn skin. Thomas's fist hammered against the door. "Maya, baby, open up, let me see it, let me help you." Her husband, the man who'd slipped a 2-carat diamond on her finger 4 years ago in a riverside garden. The man who just grabbed her arm with both hands and twisted until something inside snapped like kindling. "I didn't mean to hurt you, you know that, you startled me." She knew better than to answer. Silence only fed his rage, but words fed it faster. Maya fumbled for her phone with her left hand, vision swimming. She needed her brother. Julian would come. Julian always came. The screen smeared red under her thumb as she scrolled through contacts. Everything looked the same through tears and terror, names blurring into shapes, numbers into nonsense. She pressed what had to be Julian's name and typed with one shaking finger. "He crushed my arm. I think it's broken. He won't let me leave. 20,453 Westfield Apartments, Unit 17, please." She hit send and prayed. The door shuddered. Thomas's voice dropped to that silky register that always came before the worst of it. "Maya, I'm asking nicely. Don't make me ask again." Her phone buzzed. "Who is this?" Her heart fell through the floor. Wrong number. She'd texted a stranger while Thomas was seconds away from kicking down the only barrier between her and whatever came next. "No, no, no, no," she typed again. Faster, messier. "Wrong number, sorry, but please. Husband broke my arm. He's breaking down the door. I need help." 3 seconds of silence, then. "Don't move, I'm coming. Confirm address." Maya's breath caught. She didn't know who this person was. Didn't know if they were real or cruel or even in the same city, but they were all she had. 20,453 Westfield Apartments, Unit 17. Please hurry. Please don't call police. Another buzz. "Stay hidden, 8 minutes, hold on." 8 minutes? She'd be dead in 8 minutes. The lock was already splintering. "I'm counting to 3, Maya." The voice on the other side wasn't her husband's anymore. It was the voice he used when he stopped pretending, when the mask cracked and the thing underneath came out. 1. She pressed herself into the corner between the tub and the wall, trying to make her body smaller, trying to disappear into the grout. 2. Her phone screen dimmed. The last message sat there like a lifeline thrown from a passing ship. "Hold on." 2 words from a stranger who might not even come. 3. Welcome back to Omega's romance libraries. If you survived the last story, you already know what we're about here. We don't do safe. We do dangerous, addictive, the kind of love that leaves scars and makes you beg for more. And if you're new, you picked one hell of a story to start with. This isn't your grandmother's romance. This is obsession, power, and the thin line between salvation and damnation. Hit that like button. Drop a comment telling me if your team mean you or if you think Maya should run. The door exploded inward, splinters of cheap wood scattering across tile. Thomas filled the doorframe, 62, shoulders heaving, eyes flat and black like river stones. He wasn't looking at her like she was his wife. He was looking at her like she was a problem that needed solving. "Who were you texting?" He moved fast. Before Maya could pull the phone away, his hand closed around her shattered arm and yanked her upright. The pain was a living thing, white-hot, total, swallowing every thought except the scream that tore from her throat. Thomas ripped the phone from her grip, scrolled through the messages. His face went rigid. "Who the hell is this? You calling someone? You think someone's coming for you." "Wrong number," she gasped through the agony. "I was trying to text Julian." The slap came so hard her vision sparked. She tasted copper. You think I'm stupid? Thomas grabbed a fistful of her hair and dragged her from the bathroom into the bedroom. Nobody's coming, Maya. Nobody's going to save you. You're mine. She hit the mattress and bounced, her arms screaming. Thomas paced the room, running his hands through his hair, muttering under his breath about how she made him do this, how she never learned, how everything would be fine if she just listened. You need to understand something, he said, voice eerily calm now. He was unbuckling his belt. You don't get to leave, you don't get to call for help, you don't. Car doors slammed outside, heavy, multiple. Thomas froze. Maya's pulse hammered in her throat. 8 minutes, it hadn't even been 5. Footsteps, not the shuffle of neighbors or the casual stroll of someone walking a dog. These were purposeful, climbing the exterior stairs to their second-floor apartment with the precision of soldiers moving toward an objective. Thomas's hand went to the gun he kept in the nightstand. Who did you call? I don't know, Maya whispered, and it was the truth. The footsteps stopped outside their door. Then the knocking started. 3 slow, deliberate strikes that didn't sound like a request. They sounded like a warning. The knocking stopped for 3 heartbeats. The apartment held its breath. Then the front door didn't open. It simply ceased to exist. No splintering crash, no dramatic kick. One moment it was there, the next it was gone, removed from its hinges with surgical precision and set aside like it had never mattered at all. Thomas's hand was already on the gun when the first man entered. He was silent as death, dressed in black tactical gear that absorbed light rather than reflected it. Then another, and another. They filled the doorway like shadows given form, but none of them moved toward the bedroom. They simply stood there, a wall of absolute stillness, waiting. Then he walked in. Kang Minho didn't rush. He didn't need to. He moved through Maya's destroyed living room with the unhurried grace of a man who knew the world would wait for him. Charcoal suit, perfectly tailored, not a thread out of place despite the hour. His face was all sharp angles and cold beauty, the kind that made you forget to breathe until your lungs burned. But it was his eyes that made Maya's heart stutter. Obsidian, flat, empty of everything except a terrible, patient focus. He looked at Thomas the way someone might look at a stain on expensive marble. Get out of my house. Thomas's voice cracked as he raised the gun, his other hand still fisted in Maya's hair, yanking her head back. I'm a police officer, I know what you are. Minho's voice was quiet, almost conversational, with the barest trace of an accent that made each word sound deliberate. He took another step into the bedroom. His men didn't follow. They didn't need to. Thomas's gun hand shook. I'll shoot, Minho smiled. It was the most terrifying thing Maya had ever seen. A thin, cold line that held no humor, no warmth, nothing human at all. Just the promise of something inevitable. You won't. He moved. Maya didn't see it happen. One moment Minho was near the door. The next he was beside the bed. His hand closed around Thomas's wrist. There was a sound, wet, organic, wrong, and Thomas's scream split the air. The gun clattered to the floor. Thomas's hand hung at an unnatural angle, the same grotesque wrongness Maya had seen in her own arm just minutes before. Poetic justice delivered without a word. Thomas crumpled, clutching his shattered wrist, his face gone gray with shock and pain. Minho released him like he was discarding something distasteful, then turned to Maya. For the first time since entering, his expression shifted, not softening. Nothing about him was soft, but the flat emptiness in his eyes gained dimension. Recognition, assessment, something else she couldn't name. Can you stand? His voice dropped lower, meant only for her. Maya tried. Her legs wouldn't cooperate. The adrenaline that had kept her conscious was draining away, leaving nothing but pain and exhaustion, and the dreamlike unreality of a Korean man in a $10,000 suit standing in her bedroom at midnight because she texted the wrong number. Minho didn't wait for an answer. He shrugged out of his coat, cashmere midnight gray, still warm from his body, and draped it over her shoulders. The scent hit her immediately. Cedar and tobacco, expensive cologne, and something darker underneath. Gunpowder maybe, or blood. The coat swallowed her, heavy and luxurious and completely incongruous with the horror of the last hour. He bent down, and Maya's breath caught as he slid one arm beneath her knees, the other around her back, lifting her as though she weighed nothing at all. She should have been terrified. This stranger, this man who'd just broken her husband's bones with casual efficiency, was carrying her out of her own apartment. But the fear that should have been there was drowned by something else entirely. Relief, exhaustion, and underneath it, barely acknowledged, the feeling of being held by someone who wasn't hurting her. Minho's face was inches from hers. She could see the faint scar bisecting his left eyebrow, the way his jaw tensed as he adjusted his grip to avoid her injured arm. His breath was steady, controlled, while hers came in shallow gasps. "You're mine now," he whispered, so quiet Thomas couldn't hear over his own sobbing. Not a question, not a comfort. A statement of fact delivered with the certainty of a man who'd never been told no in his life. Maya should have protested, should have demanded answers, should have done anything except let this stranger carry her past his silent army of men, past her destroyed front door, past the life she'd known. But she didn't, because the monster holding her felt safer than the man she'd married. And that terrified her most of all. Maya woke to sunlight that shouldn't exist. Not the gray, filtered light of her apartment windows with their view of the neighboring building's brick wall. This was pure, unobstructed morning pouring through floor-to-ceiling glass that stretched impossibly high. She blinked against the brightness, her mind struggling to reconcile the last thing she remembered: Minho's arms, the backseat of a car that smelled like leather and danger, with the palace she'd woken up in. Because that's what it was, a palace suspended in the sky. The bed beneath her was a cloud of silk, sheets the color of champagne. Her right arm rested on a pillow, encased in something that looked more like aerospace engineering than a medical brace. Sleek black carbon fiber with subtle LED indicators pulsing a soft blue. No pain. Whatever they'd given her had reduced the agony to a distant throb. She sat up slowly, her body protesting in a dozen places that had nothing to do with her arm. The room was enormous, all clean lines and expensive minimalism. White walls, dark wood, and those windows. God, those windows, offering the city like a gift laid at her feet. 40 floors up, maybe more. High enough that the streets below looked like distant rivers of light. High enough that jumping wouldn't be quick. The thought came unbidden, unwelcome. Maya pushed it away and stood, testing her legs. Her feet met heated marble, and she realized she was wearing silk pajamas she'd never seen before. Black, perfectly fitted. Someone had changed her clothes while she slept. The intimacy of that violation should have terrified her, but it was swallowed by a larger, more pressing question. Where the hell was she? She found a door, black lacquered wood with no visible handle, and pressed her palm against it. It slid open with a whisper, revealing a hallway that belonged in an architectural magazine. She moved through it, her bare feet silent, following the sound of was that water, a fountain. The hallway opened into a living space that stole what was left of her breath. The penthouse stretched out like a temple to wealth and power. Everything was monochrome elegance, from the low-slung leather furniture to the abstract art that probably cost more than her entire life. But it was the view that held her captive, a 360-degree panorama of the city waking up beneath her. Beautiful, isn't it? Maya spun. A man stood near the entrance, tall, broad-shouldered, wearing a suit that marked him as one of Minho's. His face was professionally blank, but his body blocked the only visible exit. "I need to leave." Her voice came out steadier than she felt. "I'm afraid that's not possible, Miss Wilson." Miss Wilson. Not Mrs. The absence of Thomas's last name felt like freedom and imprisonment braided together. You can't keep me here. She moved toward him anyway, testing. He didn't shift, didn't reach for a weapon. He simply existed as an immovable barrier, polite and absolute. You should sit down. It wasn't a suggestion. Mr. Kang will want to speak with you. I don't care what Mr. Kang wants. You care very much what I want. The voice came from behind her, and Maya's heart performed some complicated acrobatics that left her breathless. She turned to find Minho emerging from a doorway she hadn't noticed, a glass of tea in his hand. He wore different clothes, charcoal slacks, a black shirt with the sleeves rolled to his elbows, exposing forearms corded with muscle and decorated with ink that disappeared beneath the fabric. He looked less like a businessman and more like what he actually was. Dangerous. Your arm. He gestured with the tea, those obsidian eyes tracking her with unnerving focus. The surgeon says you'll regain full mobility in 6 weeks, earlier if you're disciplined with physical therapy. You had no right. I had every right. He moved closer and Maya hated that she didn't step back. You texted me for help. I helped. I texted the wrong number. Yes, that terrible smile again, barely there. Lucky for you. The guard had disappeared, she realized. When had that happened? Now it was just her and Minho in this glass tower, the city sprawling below them like subjects before a throne. I want to go home. You don't have a home, not anymore. He set the tea down on a side table, the movement precise, controlled. Thomas isn't in jail, Maya. His brother, Detective Ryan Hayes, filed the incident as a domestic dispute with no charges. Thomas walked out of the hospital 4 hours after I left him bleeding on your bedroom floor. The room tilted. That's not possible. It's not only possible, it's done. He's looking for you right now. He's filed a missing persons report. You're officially a kidnap victim, and he's the concerned husband leading the search. Maya's legs forgot how to hold her weight. She sank onto the nearest chair, leather, butter soft, probably obscenely expensive, and tried to process what he was telling her. You're lying. I don't lie, I don't need to. Minho moved to the window, his silhouette dark against all that light. Outside these walls, you are a dead woman. Thomas will find you eventually. His badge gives him access to every camera, every database, every tool the city has to offer. And when he finds you, he will kill you. Not quickly, not cleanly. He turned back to face her, and the morning light made him look carved from shadow. In here you are untouchable, you are protected. You are, he paused, something flickering in those dead eyes, mine. I'm not anyone's, but the words sounded hollow even to her own ears. Then choose. He spread his hands, the gesture almost magnanimous. Outside you are prey, in here you are a queen. Which do you prefer? Maya looked at him, this beautiful, terrifying stranger who'd broken into her life and rearranged all the pieces, and felt the trap close around her with the soft, inexorable pressure of silk tightening into a noose. She'd escaped one monster by running straight into the arms of something infinitely more dangerous. And the most terrifying part, she wasn't sure she wanted to run anymore. 3 days passed in the glass tower, and Maya learned that luxury could be its own kind of prison. She tried the doors, all of them. They opened to reveal more beautiful rooms, a library with first editions, a gym with equipment she didn't know how to use, a kitchen stocked with food she was too anxious to eat. But the elevator required a fingerprint that wasn't hers, and the stairs led to a door with a lock that didn't respond to anything she tried. On the 4th morning, Minho knocked. Actually knocked like her opinion on his entrance mattered. Your arm needs cleaning. He stood in the doorway of the bedroom she'd claimed, holding a medical kit that looked military grade. The brace comes off for 30 minutes daily, doctor's orders. I can do it myself. With one hand, he tilted his head, and something in that small gesture made her pulse kick. You're intelligent, Maya. Don't insult us both with pride. He was right, and she hated him for it. The bathroom was an exercise in excess. Marble everywhere, a tub that could fit 4 people, a shower with enough jets to simulate a monsoon. Minho set the medical kit on the counter and turned on the water, testing the temperature with the kind of attention she'd seen him give everything. Precise, controlled, obsessive. Sit, he gestured to the bench inside the shower enclosure. Maya's heart hammered against her ribs. I'm not getting undressed. I know. He retrieved a waterproof covering from the kit. The brace stays dry, everything else gets clean. You've been wearing the same clothes for 2 days. She had, because the alternative was accepting the wardrobe that had appeared in the closet. Designer labels. Her exact size, chosen by someone who'd studied her body with uncomfortable precision. The steam built around them as she sat, still fully clothed in the silk pajamas. Minho knelt beside the bench, close enough that she could see the ink disappearing under his rolled sleeves wasn't random. It was a story told in symbols she didn't understand. Dragons, tigers, something that looked like a family crest rendered in brutal black lines. He began with her left hand, using a soft cloth to wash away days of sweat and fear. His touch was clinical at first, efficient, but there was something hypnotic about watching those dangerous hands perform such a gentle task. Hands that had broken Thomas's bones now cradling her fingers like they were made of glass. Why are you doing this? Her voice sounded strange in the steam-thick air. Because you can't. He moved to her wrist, her forearm, the movements methodical but not cold, never cold. You have people who could. I don't trust anyone else with you. The words settled between them, heavy with implication. Maya watched water droplets slide down his forearms, following the paths of ink and muscle. His sleeves were soaked now, clinging to skin that shouldn't have fascinated her, but did. Lean forward. She obeyed before her brain caught up with her body. He gathered her hair, thick coils that she hadn't had the energy to maintain, and pulled it over her shoulder with surprising gentleness. His fingers brushed the back of her neck, and Maya's breath caught. You're afraid of me, not a question. Yes. Good. He continued washing, moving to her shoulders, her back, the cloth warm and careful over silk that was growing transparent with water. Fear keeps you smart, but you're also curious. That's dangerous. Curious about what? Why a man like you would care about a woman like me? Maya turned to face him, water streaming down her face, her heart doing something complicated in her chest. Why do you mean you? He paused, the cloth still in his hand, his face inches from hers. Up close, she could see the scar through his eyebrow wasn't the only one. There was another, faint, along his jaw. And his eyes, God, those eyes weren't entirely black. There were flecks of bronze near the pupils, like embers in ash. I'll show you, he stood, offering his hand. Get dressed, something comfortable. 20 minutes later, she followed him through corridors she hadn't explored. Her damp hair leaving wet spots on the simple black dress she'd finally accepted from the closet. It fit like it was made for her. It probably was. Minho stopped at a door that looked like all the others, but wasn't. When it opened, Maya's world tilted sideways. The room was soundproofed. She could tell from the specialized panels on the walls. And in the center, bathed in soft light, stood her cello. Not one like it. Hers. The instrument she'd saved for 3 years to buy, with a scratch on the neck from the first time Thomas had knocked it over in a rage. How her voice failed. I went back. Minho leaned against the doorframe, watching her with that unnerving focus. The night I took you, my men retrieved everything that mattered before Thomas could destroy it. Maya moved toward the cello like a woman in a trance. Her fingers, the ones on her good hand, traced the familiar curves, the strings that needed tuning, the bow resting beside it. Why? Because 5 years ago I saw you perform at the Sheridan Hall benefit concert. His voice was quiet, almost reverent. You played Elgar, the cello concerto in E minor, and for 4 minutes and 37 seconds I forgot what I was. Maya turned to stare at him. You remember the piece? I remember everything about that night. He pushed off the door frame, moving closer. You wore emerald green. Your hair was up. And when you played, you closed your eyes like the music was the only thing in the world that mattered. Her breath caught. You're saying you've been what? Obsessed with me for 5 years. Obsessed is your word. He stopped just behind her, close enough that she could feel the heat of him. I prefer devoted. That's insane. Yes. His hand came up, hovering near her shoulder but not quite touching. I've bought every recording you've made, attended every public performance, and when you stopped playing 2 years ago, I noticed. I looked into why. The air left Maya's lungs. Thomas. Thomas? The name sounded like a curse in his mouth. Who crushed your spirit long before he crushed your arm. So when your text came through, when fate put you in my hands, I didn't hesitate. Maya turned to face him, and the truth crashed over her like a wave. This isn't a rescue. It's a collection, he finished, that terrible smile playing at his lips. You're the masterpiece I've been waiting to acquire, and now that I have you, his hand finally made contact, fingers tracing the line of her jaw with devastating gentleness. I'm never letting go. Maya couldn't sleep. The penthouse was too quiet at night, all that glass and marble swallowing sound until the silence itself became a presence. She'd tried, spent 2 hours staring at the ceiling of her gilded cage, replaying Minho's words in the music room. Collection, masterpiece, never letting go. She should have been terrified. She was terrified. But underneath the fear lived something else, something dark and magnetic that made her skin feel too tight, made her wonder what his hands would feel like without the gentleness, without the restraint. At 2 in the morning, she gave up on sleep and wandered. The penthouse was different at night. The city lights below transformed the glass walls into mirrors, reflecting her ghost-like figure back at her, brown skin glowing amber in the dimness, her natural hair a dark halo around her face, the black silk nightgown she'd finally accepted hanging off her frame like shadow-made fabric. She moved through corridors she'd memorized by now, drawn by something she couldn't name. Maybe curiosity, maybe self-destruction, maybe they were the same thing. That's when she heard his voice. Low, controlled, speaking in Korean with the kind of authority that made her spine straighten, even though the words meant nothing to her. It came from a room she'd assumed was locked, an office at the far end of the east wing, behind a door that always remained closed. Tonight it was cracked open, just enough. Maya knew she should walk away, knew that whatever happened behind that door was none of her business, was dangerous to witness, was exactly the kind of knowledge that got people killed in movies. But her feet kept moving, drawn by the gravitational pull of a black hole, until she stood in the sliver of darkness beside the doorframe. Through the gap she could see him. Minho sat behind a massive desk of dark wood, his face lit by the cold glow of multiple monitors. He'd shed his usual armor. The suit jacket was gone, his shirt unbuttoned at the collar, sleeves rolled up to reveal those tattooed forearms. But it wasn't his appearance that made Maya's blood run cold. It was his expression, empty, absolute, the face of a man who'd removed every trace of humanity and replaced it with pure, calculating purpose. On the screen in front of him, another man spoke, older, Korean, his face tight with fear barely masked as respect. Minho listened with the patience of a predator watching prey run out of places to hide. Then he spoke, still Korean, but Maya didn't need translation. She understood tone, she understood finality. Minho's hand moved across a tablet, his finger signing something with the casual efficiency of a man approving a lunch order. Except she knew, God, she knew in her bones, he wasn't ordering food. The man on the screen bowed. The call ended. Minho pulled up another screen. Financial charts. numbers flowing in columns that meant nothing to Maya but clearly meant everything to him. He made another gesture, moved funds with a swipe, and somewhere in the world, someone's life was being dismantled. Asset by asset, account by account. A systematic destruction carried out with the cold precision of a surgeon. This was who he was. Not the man who'd washed her arm with gentle hands. Not the man who'd retrieved her cello and remembered her performance from 5 years ago. This was Kang Minho, the king of an empire built on fear and blood, and she was standing in his palace, watching him destroy people with less emotion than normal humans showed swatting flies. She must have made a sound, a gasp, a sharp intake of breath, something. Because he looked up. For one frozen moment, their eyes met across the darkness, and Maya watched something extraordinary happen. His face transformed. The emptiness evaporated, replaced by something warm and terrible and devastating. The monster disappeared, and in its place stood a man looking at her like she was the only thing in the world worth seeing. He stood slowly, moving around the desk with that controlled grace that made her heart hammer for all the wrong reasons. Maya, her name in his mouth was a prayer and a possession braided together. You should be sleeping. I couldn't, her voice came out smaller than she intended. I heard. I know what you heard. He reached the doorway, and she should have stepped back, should have run, but she stayed rooted to the spot as he emerged from his office into the hallway. The man who just signed death warrants with the same hands now reaching for her face. Are you afraid? Yes. Good. His thumb traced her cheekbone, and Maya hated how her body leaned into the touch. You should be. I'm not a good man, Maya. I've never pretended to be. Then what are you? Yours. The word hung between them, heavy and irrevocable. Every terrible thing I am, every sin I've committed, every life I've ended, it all belongs to you now, just as you belong to me. That's not. Her protest died as his other hand came up, cradling her face like she was something precious and breakable. You can't just claim people. I don't claim people. I claimed you. 5 years ago, watching you play with your eyes closed and your soul on fire. You just didn't know it yet. The confession should have sounded insane. It was insane. But standing there in the dark hallway with his hands on her face and his eyes burning into hers, Maya felt something inside her shift, some fundamental understanding that she'd been running toward this moment since the night she'd sent that text. Maybe longer. The things I do, he continued, his voice dropping to something raw and honest, the decisions I make, they keep empires running. They keep you safe. They keep you here with me where you belong. I don't belong to anyone. Keep telling yourself that. He leaned closer, his breath warm against her lips, his scent, cedar and tobacco and danger, surrounding her completely. But we both know it's a lie. You felt it in the music room. You're feeling it now. This thing between us, it was inevitable the moment you walked onto that stage 5 years ago. Maya's hands came up, intending to push him away. Instead, they fisted in his shirt, pulling him closer even as her mind screamed at her to run. You're a monster. Yes. His forehead pressed against hers, and the intimacy of it stole her breath. But I'm your monster, and you, Maya Wilson, are my salvation and my damnation wrapped in brown skin and music. She kissed him, or he kissed her. Later, she wouldn't be able to say who moved first. The kiss ended because Maya's new phone, the one Minho had given her, untraceable, encrypted, supposedly safe, vibrated against the nightstand in her room. She pulled away from him, breathless and shaking, her lips still burning from the press of his mouth. Minho let her go, but his eyes tracked her like a predator watching prey decide whether to run. It's 3 a.m, she said, more to herself than him. Who would? The screen lit up, unknown number, and beneath it a photo that made her blood turn to ice. Julian, her brother, bound to a chair in what looked like a warehouse, his face bruised, terror stark in his eyes. And standing behind him, just visible in the frame's edge, was Thomas's unmistakable silhouette. The message came through a second later. Come alone or he dies. You have 2 hours, I'll send the address. This is where everything changes. Maya has 2 hours. Her brother's life hangs in the balance, and the monster who claims to own her is the only thing standing between her and Thomas's trap. What happens next will leave you breathless. Part 2 drops tomorrow. Hit that follow button now so you don't miss the explosive conclusion. Drop a if you're ready to see Maya's transformation. Because what comes next? It's ruthless, it's devastating, and it's exactly what you've been waiting for. Part 2 drops tomorrow. Be there.